In a cold late autumn night, as darkness enveloped the sky, my family prepared for a significant ritual, the exhumation and reburial of a departed loved one. A mix of anticipation and curiosity filled my mind, guiding me into a journey full of mysteries and sacred legends. Our story begins. Late autumn and early winter are considered the best times for exhuming and reinterring graves of the deceased. It had been exactly 3 years since we lost a family member, and the day to exhume the grave had arrived. A few days before, I noticed my uncles and aunts bustling around, preparing various items and calling the hired grave diggers to ensure they arrived on time. Although terms like reinterment and exhumation were quite familiar to me, I had never actually witnessed the process. Out of curiosity, and my love for hearing ghost stories and tales of the supernatural, I boldly asked one of my elder uncles, "Can I come along to the exhumation at the cemetery?" My uncle turned and scolded, "Exhuming graves is not a joke or something to just watch for fun. You also have to check if your age and zodiac sign are compatible for such an event. It's not just about wanting to go. Plus, it's cold, and you'll have to wake up around 2-3 a.m. to start preparing and wait for the others to arrive." Hearing this, I felt a bit hesitant, but my aunt interjected, "Oh, come on. It's just family, and his uncle was very fond of him when he was alive. If he wants to go, let him. You're making it too complicated. This is a necessary thing, and if he doesn't see it now, how will he know what to do in the future if he has to handle such matters?" My uncle frowned and said, "All right, but let me call the others and check if his age is suitable. Are you a horse sign?" I nodded eagerly, waiting for the result from my uncle. After a while, he said, "All right, it's fine. But remember to carry a clove of garlic in your pocket. If you and your uncle had a strong bond in life, he might follow you, and that could cause trouble." My aunt remarked, "If he follows, he'll only protect him, not harm him. Didn't this kid dream of his uncle several times since he passed? And those dreams brought him good fortune, even if he didn't know how to use it." I scratched my head and smiled. They were talking about my Uncle Long, who had passed away 3 years ago at the age of 45, halfway through life. But he had no wife or children, and when he was alive, he cherished his nieces and nephews. For some reason, he never got married. Since he didn't have a family of his own, he poured all his love into us, especially me. He always saved the best for me and gave me money, so I was very fond of him. Suddenly, he fell ill. It seemed like a normal illness, but it quickly took his life. At that time, I couldn't believe Uncle Long had died. His death came so abruptly, and before I knew it, his coffin was lowered into the grave. It was so sudden that even a week after his passing, I couldn't accept it as reality. During the first week, relatives visited, and I heard stories about my uncle before he died. My grandmother cried as she listened, but everyone said he was haunted by a spirit, possibly a lingering love affair that couldn't be severed, leading to his untimely death. Someone said, he wasn't disabled or anything, better than many others, but any girl he dated would run away after just a few days. It was like that for years. Whenever someone mentioned seeing a shaman to break the spell, he'd get furious. Another uncle held my grandmother's hand and said, as he was about to go, his last words were, "My wife has come to take me." Listening to those words, I felt even more pity for him. Unseen fate, demons, what a cursed and wicked thing. 3 years had already passed, and today was the day my relative would be laid to rest in the earth. Seeing that the elderly man agreed for me to accompany him, I felt both relieved and fearful. I've seen plenty of horror movies, but I had never before witnessed the bones of the deceased with my own eyes. My curiosity drove me eagerly awaiting the next day. And then the day arrived. The gravediggers, consisting of 5 men, had arrived the previous evening. Everything was prepared meticulously: hats, robes, horses, leather boots, red flowers, gold coins. Period. Period. Many things that I can't remember now. It was a rainy night, but miraculously, it cleared up around 1 a.m. After performing ancestral rites at home, I joined the family members and the gravediggers to head out to the field where my relative was buried. The cold night air cut like a knife, and the empty field made my skin crawl even more. Thankfully, I wasn't alone, there were enough people around. After paying respects and completing the rituals, under dim lights, the gravediggers confirmed the auspicious hour and began the first shovelfuls. The quiet space was filled only with the sounds of digging and the gentle wind rustling through the nearby poplar trees. "We've seen it, go easy or it might break," one of the gravediggers exclaimed, their work swift and professional. I hurried closer to watch, but not too close. Stuck. Period. Period. Stuck. Period. Dot. The sound of the coffin lid being pried open emitted eerie, spine-chilling noises. One of them, astonished, said, "Is it true he's been buried for 3 years? Why is there still flesh stuck to the bones like this? In my 30 years in this profession, I've never encountered something like this." Another person, alarmed, muttered, "This is not good. The flesh is still clinging like this. Period. Period. It's difficult." A concerned man asked, "Should we use straw and light it?" The elderly man who had been doing this for 30 years quickly shouted, "No, leave it as it is, don't burn straw or anything. Lai, go get my lamps from the car, all 4 of them." Lai hurried off and returned shortly with 4 fairly large lamps. The elderly man continued, "These are Mangsong lamps. Without these, we can't do this. The deceased has already suffered enough. If we use alcohol or gasoline, it will only worsen the situation. Leave it be, I'll take care of it. Everyone, move away from here a bit." Afterwards, he instructed the remaining people to place my relative's body on the coffin lid. Using the 4 Mangsong lamps, now lit, he placed them around my relative's body, each about 40 centimeters away. Once done, he turned to my family and said, "Keep lighting the lamp like this until the body decomposes, then you can get the bones." Having finished speaking, he continued to instruct his team, "You guys sometimes have to prepare a knife. To slice where there is still meat, you have to use a knife to cut it out. Tarpaulin, red cloth. The headrest is also ready to go. As soon as the body is tired, do it right away. Hurry and finish it before dawn, otherwise everything will be ruined." Luckily I was calculating, otherwise I'd be gay. Indeed, although I was curious at home and wanted to see it, when they carried Mr. Long's body and placed it on the coffin lid, I didn't dare to look anymore. It took a long time for Mr. Long's body to disintegrate. At this time, the gravedigging team poured wine on it and carefully picked up each bone to neatly arrange it on a previously spread red cloth. The scene is quite horrifying for those who are weak-minded. There are bones still covered with pieces of mushy flesh. Just looking at it gave me chills, but the gravediggers still held a knife and gently scraped each bone to remove the remaining flesh. Next, They carefully wash each bone in water and place it on another clean red cloth. When I got there, I didn't dare look anymore. It was 6 a.m., so it took nearly 4 hours for everything to be completed. After that time, it was the first and last time I went to see the graves dug up. Thinking about lunch that day, I didn't dare move my chopsticks to pick up anything. Yet, looking at the gravediggers' table, I saw that they were still eating and drinking well, constantly toasting each other. My uncle also sat there thanking them. Luckily, my family was able to find an experienced and quite good gravedigging team. If today it falls into the hands of someone inexperienced, it will be in big trouble. The captain laughed. Not everyone can do this job, but this is the first time it took me so much time. Normally, it's very stressful and it only takes 2 hours to finish. But today, encountering a body with intact flesh like that took too much time to light the mantle lamp. Those lights are my treasures. Seeing that the story seemed interesting, I ran over there and sat down, also thanking the crew. I say, today was the first time I went to see it and I was so scared. Period. The drunk uncle patted my shoulder and said, "If a young man is so weak-minded, there is no point in digging up the grave of the dead." There are also stories of people who have been dead for several years but are still alive and walking as normal. I gasped. I didn't believe it. I thought that uncle was lying. Looking at me, he smiled and pointed at the surrounding workers. "Look at his face and you can tell he doesn't believe it. Do you want to hear a ghost story?" If this young man heard that story, he would probably shit his pants in fear. Period. Question mark. The whole crew burst out laughing, which made me quite annoyed. I said, "Okay, I'll listen. There's no way a dead person can still walk and live like normal. Unreasonable." My uncle saw that I looked determined, so he stopped laughing, sat down and said, "Okay, today I will tell you the story of the demon mother." The whole table suddenly became silent. Some people shook their heads slightly to signal that they did not want him to tell the old story. But then the story still started with a serious and quite scary tone.